Hello everybody, welcome back to another movie review with Brad. Today we'll be discussing The Girl with All the Gifts. Just finished watching it. You can watch it for free on YouTube. Currently, you know how we do, you know the drill. Overall impressions and grade after reading the logistics as provided by Google. Then if you've not seen the movie, would like to, based on my recommendation, you're going to want to shut off the video. There will be spoiler alerts. We'll be discussing the plot synopsis and character development, and any similar movies or and major themes. So, The Girl with All the Gifts, rated R, released in 2016. It is a horror/thriller. It has a runtime of 1 hour and 51 minutes. Google says why to watch. It's harrowing, frantic, and gruesome. It says, one of several children immune to a mutated fungal disease that has eradicated free will and turned the rest of humanity into cannibalistic zombies, a gifted young girl escapes the safety of a special school and helps guide mankind's survival. Originally released on February 24, 2017, did a measly $4 billion at the box office. Directed by Cole McCarthy, it is set in modern day to 2017 London, and yeah. So what did I think about it? Well, 74% liked it on Google, 3 out of 5 on Common Sense, 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, and 6.6 out of 10 on IMDb. And overall, what did I think? I like the zombie apocalypse. I like seeing society break down in terms of a movie script. I think it's always a fertile plot script to write about. Just interesting to me. I thought the tone was good. I thought it was a little different. I like the ending of this one in terms of, in relation just to like we reviewed The Crazies and World War Z, and I will review I Am Legend, you know, whenever the second one comes out for that one. I'll definitely watch that before the second one comes out. But just in comparison to other zombie apocalypse type of movies, the ending of this one was novel to me, and so I enjoyed it. I thought the tone, the soundtrack, it's got a nice eerie song or chant thing they play at the beginning into different parts of the movie, and so not very much screaming, so no really not much off-putting characterization at all. So overall, I'm gonna give it a solid, just give it a solid B+. I found it entertaining. Again, I like the zombie apocalypse genre, breaking down of society, survival type of movies, and so I thought it was upper end of entertaining. Again, I had seen it before, so again I knew the resolution to the movie, but I enjoyed it and I recommend this one. So if you've not seen it, would like to, based on that, you want to shut off the video now. So the movie opens up and you meet this girl named Melanie, and she's just counting to like 32 or 35 or something. And they're in this big, metal bunker-looking area. And so they get put into these wheelchairs. You're not really sure why, but they're all young kids, between probably 8 and 12. And they get wheeled into this place. They're all in these, restricted wheelchairs, and they're being instructed by their teacher, Helen Justineau. And so just normal kids kind of learning stuff. They're getting quizzed. You also meet the chief scientist, Dr. Caroline. Her last name I couldn't read off of the character list. But Dr. Caroline's asking about the different periodic table elements, blah, blah, blah. And then the teacher, Helen Justineau, comes in, and she's a lot more, just treats the children a lot more humane. And so you're not really sure again why they're restricted yet, but they get some instruction, and then they get put back in their cells. When they get put back in their cells, there's always 2 armed guards, one with a gun directly pointed at them, and the other one adjusting their restraints or letting them free. And so that's what's going on. Melanie, after the first night, she gets food, and she gets fed like maggots or just like little worms. And so you have some inclination that they're different now that they're eating worms, in addition to being restrained for school. They go into the school the next day, and number 13 is missing. And they're like, Melanie's very inquisitive, asking, when is 13 gonna be back? And they're like, we don't know. Also, when at the nighttime, again, there's 3 or 4 nights that go by, pretty quickly in the very beginning of the movie. Dr. Caroline comes over and asks Melanie just different questions about riddles and logic puzzles to see, just kind of how she's progressing. And they go back into school the next day, or class the next day, and they want to be told stories. And so Helen Justineau reads some Greek mythology and then has them write their own story. And Melanie's one of the only kids that finishes hers, and she writes about a heroine, a female hero, rescuing just some people being attacked. And so they, after telling her story, Helen goes up and touches Melanie's head, or like her hair, and then you meet Sergeant Eddie Parks, who's kind of like the lead military dude, and he comes in absolutely furious, like, don't touch these things. And you have a couple of the comments, like the soldiers, like, they're called abortions, or just like, like it's, or like, really dehumanizing the kids, and you're not sure why. But then Sergeant Eddie Parks comes in, and he spits on his arm and puts it right in front of the kids, and then they all sort of have this, like, zombie reaction. Very similar to, like, the zombies created in World War Z or the Crazies as well. And so you now kind of learn that these children, again, from the description, you know that the world's, has some fungal disease going around, destroying everything, turning people into zombies. But you basically learn that these children, their mothers had been infected at the, conceiving them, and they're semi-immune to the response. They can still act human, but if they get hungry or if they smell something too much, they revert back into these zombie type of creatures. So now you've learned why they're being restrained, and after that, they're discussing basically, I think Melanie gets put in somewhere, or she gets taken to a table to basically be dissected. Dr. Caroline is, cutting up the kids to try to develop a vaccine, and she has another kind of assistant doctor, Selkirk, and so they're kind of, about getting ready to cut up Melanie. You see, number 13's brain sitting in one of those jars where you put organs in, and Helen, who has got an affinity or an affection for Melanie, bursts in. She's like armed with a fire extinguisher, and so Dr. Caroline pepper sprays her, and then calls for security. And so as they're getting ready to operate on Melanie, you see these zombies running in from outside, about to break through the screen. And so they are on this big military compound, and it's surrounded like a big fence, very similar to World War Z. And they're keeping out and trying to keep away all these things, which they call hungries. And so, there are a bunch of all these hungries, zombies are lined up on the fence, and they're just mowing them down as fast as they can. So this one is pretty gory, which I thought was good for the tone and for the writing script. Again, pretty ominous. I thought the overall just feeling you get from watching was pretty cool. But regardless. So now there's big helter-skelter. They're all running around. Helen is about to get attacked by some hungries, and then Melanie jumps up and attacks them and eats them herself. And so basically saving Helen. Sergeant Eddie Parks is driving this big military, and it would be like SWAT type of vehicle, heavily armored. And so Sergeant Eddie Parks, Melanie, Helen, Kieran Gallagher, who's like another major army dude, a soldier named Dylan, all get into the and Dr. Caroline all get into this big armored vehicle to escape. And so they find like a little mask to put over Melanie so she doesn't bite them, and the disease is transmitted by blood contact or by biting. And so they have a face mask to restrain her teeth, as well as they handcuff her behind her back. So they get out of the city. Again, it is modern day 2017 in London. And so they go, they're driving in kind of this like a wooded area. I mean, I don't know the geography of London or the areas, but they go and they're trying to fill up some canteens, some water, get some supplies, and try to regroup and make contact with other people. And so while they're doing that, Sergeant Eddie Parks tells them to have silencers on their weapons. As they're filling up their canteens, Dylan hears something and starts shooting, and he doesn't have a suppressor on his rifle, and so now he's going to attract a bunch of these other hungries. And so they all rush back to get into the car. They put Melanie in like the gunner turret seat to keep her away from the other people. But regardless, of action sequence of a bunch of hungries trying to eat them. Dylan has blood on his shirt. Sergeant Eddie Parks pulls out his gun, puts his pistols to his head, and is like, we have to see if you're going to turn or not. And very similar to World War Z type of scenes. And then Dylan does turn, so Sergeant Eddie Parks shoots him. So Dylan is dead, and now the rest, Dr. Caroline, Kieran, Sergeant Eddie Parks, Helen, and Melanie are the main characters throughout the rest of the movie. And so They go in, they're going to go to find some place in London. And the zombie characterization is, again, they have some, back when they were even in like their metal cells, Melanie had mouthed off to Sergeant Eddie, and so he left her in the restraints. And so Helen had gone in there and started to undo her restraints, and Melanie could smell her. So the smell is their main olfactory response, is their main sensation to which they react. But they also react to loud noise, eye contact, or movement. And so Melanie's like, get away from me, Helen. And then she rubs on her this oil or just lotion, and so basically they have a repellent, so where the hungries can't smell them. And so they put this oil or this lotion on, and they're in this big kind of like mall area, and they're going to walk through, and if they just walk on tiptoes and don't make loud noises, they should be fine. And so Melanie is fine regardless because she is a hungry, so that she won't get attacked. They start tiptoeing through this area. Dr. Caroline sees a mother hungry, moving a stroller, and Dr. Caroline's like, I've never seen one show of maternal instinct, and she goes over there to like see what the baby's like, and it's really just a rat eating her dead baby. And so Dr. Caroline kind of freaks out, makes a noise, awakes some of them, but not all of them, and there's a bunch of them around, but so they're able to shoot them, they get headshots to them, kill them like a lot of the other zombie movies, and body shots just kind of wound them. So they're able to, again, they only awake a couple of them, and they're able to get into this bigger room or this upper part of the mall and find some relative safety. And so they have to clear the area. Helen finds one tied up or chained to the wall, and it's eating its own arm and shoots it. Melanie gets hungry and needs to go eat, and so they let her out, and she goes and eats a cat, as well as goes into a house and kind of like, it looks like fantasizing what a normal life would be like for her. And so that kind of happens as well. Then she comes back, and the next morning they wake up, Melanie and Kieran kind of bond a little bit, and then the next morning they wake up and there's a bunch of these hungry just sitting outside. And so Melanie's like, they're not going to harm me, I can always get away, you just have to let me go out there. And so I thought the characterization was good again about her being kind of a zombie, but also trying to sympathizing with the human beings, and it just being somewhat novel in comparison to these other zombie movies. And so she goes out there, she finds a dog, and then lets the dog run out, and all the hungries go chasing after the dog. And so Melanie's building some rapport with Sergeant Eddie, and they're able to walk out and go further into the city. And so they find this big kind of like metal trailer, again very similar to like Jurassic Park, the Lost World, where they have these big metal trailers, just for like military use with a bunch of different supplies. And so they find in there, they see some other people that have been there, and they're assuming they're dead. And so also as they're walking through London, they see this huge pillar of basically the zombies when they all conglomerate together. Like the next phase of the fungal infection is like, reproduction in terms of like seed pods or like plants almost, like pollen. And so Dr. Caroline's like, if these things open up, it's the end of the world because the infection will go airborne. And so some premonition of what's going to happen later. And then basically the next morning shows up and they need some food, and Kieran decides that he is going to go on a supplies run or go try to scavenge some supplies. And so both Kieran goes out there along with Melanie. Melanie's hungry again, and she eats like a bird this time or something. But she also sees a bunch of other kids that right around her age, young kids, that are these hungries. You also learn furthermore, again, we talked about how they get infected at the beginning, but Dr. Caroline's also like, when you guys were infected, you guys ate your way out of your mother's stomachs. And so, again, it's pretty gruesome, pretty gory movie, but I thought it would fit well for the zombie theme. But Melanie sees all of these kids about ready to go hunt Kieran. So she runs back and tells Helen and Sergeant Eddie, and Melanie's like, I can smell, I can figure out where they're at. And so Sergeant Eddie's at first like, Kieran's got the scent blocker on, but then they realize that the kids have been trained to smell the scent blocker as well because of these people that left this big trailer, they're getting dead. And so Kieran finds, canned food, kind of just like set out like Hansel and Gretel, like follow the trail. So he just kind of follows it to this grocery store, goes into the grocery store, and a kid approaches him with a rat, and he's not too afraid of him at first. And then there's a bunch of them, and then they maul him and devour him and eat him pretty much entirely. And so Helen, Sergeant Eddie, and Melanie find his dead body. Another gruesome looking scene, and then Melanie's like, "This is a trap for us as well," and she goes out there. And so all of these kids are surrounding them. They're kind of like a ringleader that has a baseball bat. They're all chomping their teeth really hard and grinding their teeth like zombies would, or they're portrayed to do. And so Melanie's like, "Let me handle this," and she basically beats the head kid to death with his own baseball bat, and establishes dominance among the other zombie kids. And so they're able to escape out of that scenario. And there's a scene where like Melanie's like, "Act like you're really afraid of me," and Sergeant Eddie's like, "Act," because they just watched a 12-year-old beat another 12-year-old to death with a baseball bat as a zombie. And so they make it back to this airlocked military kind of trailer thing, and they kind of like fall asleep, and Dr. Caroline is dying of blood poisoning, and so she really wants to have Melanie volunteer to be killer, like just be turned into a vaccine. And so at first Melanie, there's some dialogue about why should we sacrifice ourselves for you. And so Melanie is able to escape. She goes outside and she locks the AirPod, but I think Dr. Caroline just falls over dead, or no, I think she gets torn apart later. But regardless, Melanie makes the big development is that Melanie decides that she is going to light these big seed pods on fire and have the Hungries, like why should the normal people get to live and we die as opposed to the opposite. And so she goes there and burns this huge tower of these pods, and they go airborne. Dr. Caroline kind of goes outside, and she's dying of blood poisoning anyway, and she does get eaten by the kids, and so she gets torn up to pieces. And as she's walking back, Sergeant Eddie Parks is coming to find her, outside. He's like, "What did you do?" And she was like, "I burnt the thing so we could live, and you guys are supposed to be safe. You're supposed to stay in the AirPod or the airlock." So Sergeant Eddie Parks gets infected, and he gives Melanie his gun and is like, "Shoot me." So she shoots him, and so Sergeant Eddie Parks is killed. And then kind of the real resolution to the movie is Helen Justineau, who again Melanie really likes. She wakes up and she's in this trailer, and in the same way at the beginning of the movie she was giving lessons to the kids who were restrained. Now she is restrained in this airlock pod, and the other kids can run around free, and she teaches them from inside the airlock over a loudspeaker. So that's kind of the big kind of resolution, is them switching from being captives to having Helen captive, or just more importantly them being free and the normal human beings not being in control. And so I thought it was a little different. Again, where I Am Legend, they develop a vaccine. World War Z, they develop a vaccine. The Crazies, well, those people all get killed. But I just thought it was unique to have like the morality or the ethical development being Melanie and choosing these zombies over the normal people. So overall, I thought it was some novelty to a zombie movie. I found it thoroughly entertaining. I had seen it before, but the first time I'd watched it, I thought the overall tone and just feel to the movie was pretty eerie and pretty cool. So overall, B+, upper end of entertaining. Thank you for watching my movie review of The Girl with All the Gifts, and I will see you on the next one.